Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dianne Haulcy, President and CEO of the Family Partnership, and I just want to welcome you to our very first TFP Talks session. Today, I want to just introduce to you a couple of people, a couple of friends of mine, actually, and we're really happy today to be able to talk with you about what we're calling the Minnesota Miracle, what happened at the 2023 state legislature.
Well, what we found, what the research showed, as I said, it was a bit of a surprise, was that probably the best public investment we can make, investing in these children. What we found from the research, there's less need for special ed, less grade retention, much more likely if these kids get a high quality early ed program, start school ready, they succeed in life, they're more likely to be healthier, they're more likely to have a successful career. These are really strong benefits, and more recently we found that there's intergenerational success, the children of the children. And the cost of investing, while it may look high, it's very low relative to the return. So what was this research? So I'm going to argue there are 3 or 4 actually longitudinal studies that all come to the same conclusion, a very high public, and let me emphasize public return when we make this investment. The classic study that's often cited is Perry Preschool. Started in Ypsilanti, Michigan in the early 60s. Somebody had this bright idea, maybe with our children, our most at-risk children, kindergarten is too late. And so they decided to do an experiment, a social experiment. They had 123 poverty families randomly divided into 2 groups. One group gets a high quality early childhood program, master level teachers, small classroom size, home visits, working with the parent. And sure enough, this study finds that the children that were in this program, we got all these amazing benefits. All right, so we have these benefits. Economists can put dollar values on a savings, not needing special ed, not being retained in a grade, by succeeding in school, going on to VOTEC or higher education, we found criminal activity dropped by 50%, between the 2 groups. And then we have the longitudinal studies that went on 40, 50 years. The kids were healthier as adults, and their children were succeeding in school, like I said. And we asked a very simple question that most business people would ask. The program in today's dollars was about $10,000 per year, $20,000. What was the return on that investment? The total return was 18% inflation adjusted. And much of that return was a public return, because as these children succeed, our community succeeds. Yes, you can make an economic argument. The annual rate of return on the stock market post-World War II was 6%. We can beat the market. We can get 18%. And I actually think now that's an underestimate. So yes, this is probably the best public investment we can make. And we should clearly aim for all our children born into poverty, all our children born of incarcerated parents, all our children homeless need to have this program, and it's a great public investment.
It's such a pleasure to be here with all of you and to be able to have this conversation in partnership with the Family Partnership. I think sometimes it can, you all might feel disconnected from the power of policymaking or opportunity and investment. And I think the story and the partnerships that you build with families and build in partnership with government are the reasons why we have these historic opportunities that Art has described and ways that we've just continued to build and invest. So as Dianne said, I serve as the Executive Director of the Governor's Children's Cabinet, and this is really a charge of how state government should be working differently to center children. So this is not new to you in the work of and the network of the Family Partnership when you are working to support families from so many different aspects of their life. But as you might imagine, government is set up in sort of individual silos, education here and child welfare here and economic stability in different places. And the charge of our work is to be centering children and trying to get our from policy, data, money, and people better aligned around children and families. And really that platform has came to sort of build this opportunity of the last session. Governor Walz and Lieutenant Governor Flanagan, who chair the Children's Cabinet, both come from a long, rich line of children's advocacy, both as teachers, parents, coach, and child advocates.
Some of what Erin talked about, child tax credit. So this will reduce child poverty in Minnesota by a third, which means that that's 36% of all Minnesota households. So that's huge. And so this will, not only will this help probably most of the people that we serve, but we are also actively going to be getting involved in doing outreach to people so that they know that this is something that they can access this year. And so those extra checks, they might not seem like a lot to us, but they're huge for people that are living in poverty that can really make a difference. And then childcare accessibility. This is huge as well. Art did a really nice job of talking about the importance of early child, a foundation of high quality care. What happened in this past session around childcare accessibility are policies that had been, we had been advocating on for years and years. And finally came to fruition. The Child Care Assistance Program, getting that increase, the early learning scholarships that we talked about, and voluntary pre-K. These are all of our people as well. Almost all of the people that are in our child care programs are either on child care assistance or early learning scholarships or both. Many of them blend them together. Childcare worker compensation, and this is a huge issue even before the pandemic, but has really increased since the pandemic. The fact that childcare workers, childcare educators are not really paid a living wage. However, our state has now put almost $360 million of support into the workforce. So this is higher ed programs, our compensation, professional development, and retention programs. So these are programs that we are actually already accessing. So we are already able to access these some retention dollars from the state. Our teachers will be able to access these higher ed programs and the professional development programs. And all of this, anytime you do work to stabilize the early childhood workers, you're also not only stabilizing the workforce, you're able to give parents that assurance that their jobs, they can attend their jobs, and they'll be able to work in their jobs without having to worry about, is there going to be a place for my child? And then lastly, and probably more importantly, when you're able to have workers that are consistent and are stable in their employment, early childhood educators, it really helps with the early childhood development because they're able to actually bond and attach with those teachers. And that's a huge part of actually how children learn is through that bonding and attachment. Housing, I tell you, I can't say enough about how happy I am about housing. So we are not housing providers. However, I don't care what program it is that we have, housing is the number one issue that our families face, or I should say lack thereof housing, not having enough housing, not having safe housing. And this $1 billion, yes, I did say that correctly, $1 billion investment in housing has increased the Housing Finance Agency budget by 850%. And so I am really excited about once they begin to roll out these programs, figuring out how to get our families into some of those home ownership or getting them out off of the streets into some kind of safe and stable housing. And housing actually is a huge component in fostering child welfare because without stable housing, it's really difficult for children to develop. And then lastly, family home visiting. So there's $7.2 million in additional investments, and we do family home visiting at TFP. Our work kind of centers around ensuring that families do not enter the child child welfare system, but also that's done through really building on their family strength and helping with that family support. So I'm really happy about these additional investments, which will mean that hopefully we'll be able to do even more home visiting to families.